Here's Brody Brazil.
I guess I'm making this video for two separate reasons. Number one is just informational purposes, something I found compelling I wanted to pass along, but maybe more than that, I'm kind of hoping for the reverse jinx here. You know how that works, where a broadcaster says something that hasn't come true yet, and then because I say it, it comes true. And in this case, it would certainly help the personal and professional life of one Joseph Pavelski. I'm calling Pavelski playoff unlucky here because there's a stat about him that has recently become true. It's recently circulated. I don't really want to make too big a deal about it because I don't want it to define him in the rest of his career. Hopefully it changes, but it is something interesting to consider. We're going to look here at most career NHL playoff games without having won a Stanley Cup. This is not a list of active players. This is a list of all-time players, and it actually begins with the other Joe, Big Joe. Jumbo Joe Thornton played 187 NHL playoff games without ever winning a Stanley Cup. And to be honest, when he and Patrick Marleau both retired, on one hand, you celebrate every single accomplishment and team they were on and thing they did and player they helped make better on their own team. There was so much about the career of Joe Thornton, easily a first ballot Hall of Famer. There's no question about that. But 187 playoff games, never getting his name on the Stanley Cup. And then there's Patrick Marleau, a handful of games ahead of Joe, I guess that's how you'd say it in this category, 195. Mostly with the San Jose Sharks. Patty was in playoffs after playoffs, just could not get to winning a Stanley Cup. And it's unfortunate for all the same reasons as Joe Thornton. He and Patrick Marleau 1-2 in the 97 draft, 2-3 in terms of this very unfortunate list. And that brings me, as you might expect by now, to Joe Pavelski, who recently surpassed Patty on this unfortunate list. He got to 196. Now he's at 197. As I record this, the Dallas-Edmonton series, it's 2 games in, series tied at 1. So it's now a best of 5. And the way I see it, Joe Pavelski's easily going to surpass the 200 mark here just in a chance to get to the Stanley Cup final. If Dallas can advance and beat Edmonton and give Pavs a chance to win the Stanley Cup against the Eastern winner, either Florida or the Rangers, he's going to get past 200 to even get to the Stanley Cup final this year. But yeah, let's pause here on Joe Pavelski for just a second. Let's isolate on him. He's the one that's still playing. He's the one that's still got a chance. He's 39 years old right now. In mid-July, and this summer, he's going to turn 40 years old. His contract for the Stars, the 1-year deal, it's obviously up as soon as their last game is over. Technically, I think the contract ends in July, but I have no doubt he will play in his 40-year-old season. Whether it's Dallas, I think it should be, or somebody else competitive, they are going to pick him up. He has only gotten better in the last several years. His skills have not diminished, his hand-eye coordination, the tipping, all that stuff, the leadership. Yeah, you're still getting something great with Joe Pavelski. Forget about the age. 17 NHL seasons, 16 different playoff appearances. In that regard, right, I'm saying that Pavelski is playoff unlucky. It's not the fact that he hasn't been to playoffs. I mean, wouldn't most players love to have 17 seasons under their belt? And to go to the Stanley Cup playoffs 16 different times? On one hand, like most NHLers are probably envious of that. But here's Joe Pavelski knocking on that Stanley Cup door every single year, and he just hasn't been part of a team that gets him, and he gets all the way. 134 playoff games during his time with San Jose, 63 and counting with the Dallas Stars. And when you really sit back and digest 197 total playoff games, that's the equivalent of 2+ full regular seasons, like every single game of 2 straight regular seasons, plus that just of playoff games for Joe Pavelski. So over 17 years, you kind of add in at least 2 full more seasons to the wear and tear on his body. He's only got better. He's only produced more the older he gets. 143 playoff points alone. Of the 197 total games, his team has won 18 games because he scored a game-winning goal in those games. He also plays a lot. Average time on ice during a playoff game for Joe Pavelski, 19 minutes and 54 seconds. Again, all of this from a player who is 39 right now, about to be 40 years old next hockey season. Here are my takeaways on all of this. Obviously, Pavs is still in a really good spot and has a great chance right now to advance to the Stanley Cup final with the Dallas Stars. I think the next year's contract is going to take care of itself. I think no matter what, hopefully for him, it's Dallas, and for Dallas, it's him. So he can remain on a competitive team and not skip a beat, even if they don't win it all this year. I think he's got at least another go-around or two. So I don't want to dwell on this too much because Joe Pavelski's story, I don't think, is anywhere near over. But I also realize that winning a cup changes the legacy of a player, for any player. And I've known players who have retired from the NHL, and we talk a little bit about how close they came to winning a Stanley Cup. And it always is going to eat at that player and his teammates across all the years and decades. They got that close and could not, for whatever reason, get to the ultimate destination versus those who have. And they revel in that moment. They revel in the storylines and how it all worked out. And that one spring turned into summer. Their hockey team won it all. And they'll never forget those teammates. They'll never forget those times. They'll look at things a totally different way just because their team was the last one standing and won the Stanley Cup. So the legacies of players, yeah, you're always going to remember Joe Thornton, Patrick Marleau, and Joe Pavelski as great players. But if Pavelski wins a cup, he'll always inevitably just be looked at a little bit different. Fair or not, I'm here to say that's just how it is. I'm also here to tell you, in my opinion, the Stanley Cup is the hardest professional sports title to win. Because in other leagues, you have to be good. You have to be the good team, maybe the best team, maybe the greatest team. In basketball, usually the handful of best teams make it down to the conference finals, and then the two best teams play in the NBA finals, and the best team usually wins out. And it has a lot less to do with luck. Baseball, there is a little bit of luck. It's more about which team is hotter in the moment. Hockey's a case of almost all three. Which team's better, which team's hotter, and which team is luckiest for several weeks down the final stretch. Obviously, there have been hockey teams which have pretty pedestrian regular seasons. They get into the playoffs, and then all of a sudden the magic starts happening. It works in their favor. This is not to take away from the Commissioner's Trophy of baseball, the Larry O'Brien Trophy of basketball, or obviously the Lombardi Trophy when you win the Super Bowl. But I think it's fair, if you've watched hockey enough, you realize how hard it actually is to win this because of the bounces, because of the slimmest of margins, because the amount of games and injuries and setbacks that all good teams have. Like, you need more than just a good team on your side. You need the right bounces, you need the right timing, you need a certain amount of luck for your team to win it all. And no player can control really the team they're on, the teammates they're surrounded by, or the luck they have in the end. So as much as we talk about winning a cup or not defining a player's legacy, it's so unfair because said player has very little control over that. I mean, they might be a great player and one that pushes their group instead of holds it back, but you need a bunch of those types of players in the end. This is a team sport, and that is a team title, the cup, to win. And I also think that in this case, like I mentioned before, ample opportunity. Year after year after year. There's only been one Stanley Cup playoffs since Joe Pavelski debuted in the NHL that he was not part of. Was that 2014-15? The Sharks simply did not make it that year. Every other year, he's had a chance at the dance. So, in a weird way, if I looked at a player's career and they had 12 seasons in the books and they made it to the Stanley Cup playoffs 5 times and didn't win a cup, you'd say, well, just didn't work out. They weren't on good teams. But for Joe Pavelski to literally be on good team after good team after great team after good team and have so many opportunities, it breeds that frustration and it breeds the conversation of saying that the guy right now is playoff unlucky because he holds this record. I don't want to dwell on it. I want to do the reverse jinx thing here, like I said. I'm talking about it. I'm hoping it comes true for Joe Pavelski. Yeah, Pete DeBoer included. I have no real connection to the Dallas Stars. I'm rooting for individuals here, and I certainly hope Joe Pavelski gets his name on the Stanley Cup. You made it here to the end of this video. You know I'd really appreciate the thumbs up down below. That'll help me, this video, and this channel. And also, if you subscribe to the channel, I get to see you next time. Just go down there right now below. Hit that subscribe button. More videos like this, the NHL, Major League Baseball, sports, and beyond. Really trying to bring it here on a regular basis on the channel. So I hope to see you back here next time.